Good morning, y'all. I am at the community plot this morning to survey the damage from Snowpocalypse last night, so I thought I'd take you guys along. And just like full disclosure, it's 7:30 a.m. I work a full-time job. If this is your first time here, I use this channel to catalog my garden adventures week to week, but I still have a full-time job. I have a community plot that's about 15 minutes away from my house, and then I have my backyard garden. So that's why I look like this, because I woke up about an hour ago. I made myself some coffee, I threw on some clothes, and here I am. So we had really unusual weather last week. We had about 6 inches of snow up to like 12-inch snow drifts, and we had temperatures down in the negatives for a while. And yesterday it was 75 degrees. So we're gonna go survey the damage and see how we made out at the community plot, and then I'll take you guys to the backyard. The backyard wasn't super exciting. Moral of the story is everything lived, so that's great. Okay guys, I did not bring my tripod, so this is gonna be a little like disjointed. It's not great. I feel like I need to just like insert a video clip here of what it looked like before the freeze, because this is rough, and that is the nicest way I can say that. So here we go. Oh, dead calendula. Spinach survived. That's great. Spinach looks good, and actually I bet it's really sweet, so I'm probably gonna pick some. Turnips, half dead. Snap peas, super dead. Sage lived. Flowers lived. And then there's this. So this was all broccoli that I had let go to flower. And then this they are Brussels sprouts. So I think, yeah, those are just completely toast. I don't even know if there's like harvestable there's not even like harvestable Brussels sprouts on these. They're just, everything's so dead. My parsley, dead. Let's see here. Cilantro survived. That's cool. Dead, 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 dead. Oh no. This looks like bleached coral is what this looks like. It looks like my collard greens may have survived. I think maybe if I trim those back, those may be okay. But let's see. Are there any there's no like harvestable Brussels sprouts. Those big mustard greens, they're dead. I can't believe these flowers lived, like out of anything. It looks like I had a few like little carrots growing. Those lived. Let's see here. Ugh. So these Brussels sprouts over here were like at least decent. Like these were kind of, nope. There's the Fast and the Furious on the freeway right by my community garden plot. Yeah, so it looks like everything's dead. Honestly, I fully expected this. I'm not surprised in the least. Mostly because my backyard garden backs up to a fence. So I don't think my backyard garden got the wind chill quite as bad as this garden did. I just wish I would have harvested whatever Brussels sprouts I could have. But honestly, this will be totally fine. I was planning on ripping everything out and amending this soil for spring planting in like 2 weeks anyway. So I'll just get this cleared at some point in the next couple of weeks. And we will try Brussels sprouts again next year. I tried to plant them again this year. I haven't had much success, so I might be done with Brussels sprouts for a couple of years. Honestly, I'm glad this happened at the end of the season and not the beginning of the season. But yeah, I mean, at least I have spinach, I still have some herbs. My oregano patch looks a little sad, but I'm gonna leave it because I bet it'll perk back up. So yeah, it's okay, it's all good. It's gonna be in the 70s this week, and the nights are gonna start consistently being in the 50s, which is tomato planting weather. Very excited about it. So I am going to put you guys away, harvest some spinach, and I will show you guys the backyard, which looks much better. Hey guys, so I am clearly showered. We're gonna do some lunch break garden stuff, but let me show you how everything fared in the backyard from our freeze last week, and then we are going to plant the first flowers of spring, and I'm very excited about it. The best news that I have is that our tulips survived. So they're all starting to poke their heads up. The daffodils are pretty much toast. The lemon balm kind of survived. And then these things of tulips are doing well. I think my rosemary is pretty toast, but also I'm leaving it because there's some green in there. And then my peppermint did totally fine. I had to run inside and help with something real quick. Over here, looks like these onions did okay. The kale survived, surprisingly. These onions never did well, so that's fine. Some of my sugar snap peas kind of lived. Some of them didn't. The petunias are doing great. The daisies are still alive. Some of the snapdragons are still alive. The pansies are pretty dead. The garlic, I'm not sure how the garlic is, if I'm being honest. Some of this I planted way too close together, so I was actually pulling some of these yesterday. Here's that really nice looking red garlic. So I'm trying to like thin this out, but it definitely looks pretty rough. So it's still got enough green to where I think it's gonna be okay. And like the elephant garlic back there will be fine. And then here's all the onions. And these all look pretty okay. They definitely have some that are struggling, but I think all in all they'll be okay. And actually I dug a little bit down to see how well they were growing. And they seem to be doing pretty well. So, happy with that. So, what we're gonna go ahead and plant today was something I was actually planning on putting out before the bad weather hit, and I didn't have a chance, and that is these variegated nasturtiums. They are beautiful. I'm so excited to plant them. Yeah, like I said, I was planning on putting them out a long time ago. Oh, I forgot to show you the strawberries. These strawberries pretty much all made it. I think there's a couple that might need to come back, but all in all, the strawberries are a-okay. Okay, so I went ahead and planted these nasturtiums in the corners of this bed. And these are Alaska red shade nasturtiums from Baker Creek, and they're beautiful. So let's hope they take really well to the soil. We're supposed to have highs in the 70s and lows in the like really high 40s and 50s. So definitely hoping that I don't completely shock them. I did leave them outside yesterday afternoon and overnight, so I think they'll be okay. But I'm glad I transplanted them when I did because the roots were already reaching the bottom of that red solo cup that I had them in. So let the spring planting begin. Hey guys, and good morning. It's kind of funny that a week ago when I was recording this day of the vlog, I was in full snow gear, and today I am in a dress and spaghetti straps. It's about 65 degrees out right now. It's supposed to get up to 80 today, so I am starting the process of what's called hardening off my seedlings. So what that means is basically you bring your seedlings outside for a couple of hours at a time, and you slowly extend that amount of time that your seedlings are going to spend outside. This is going to help them get used to the air, the temperature fluctuation, the wind, all of that stuff. So if you think about it, your seedlings have been sitting inside in your house, you know, with the air and a very consistent temperature for basically the whole time that they've been alive. So, and potentially not a lot of like variance in wind. So that's why when the seedlings get to a certain size, you start going through the hardening off process. So what that's gonna look like for me today is I brought a tray of my seedlings outside and I put them just out in the open air. I gave them a really good watering, and I put on a timer for 2 hours, and then I'll bring them back inside, bring out another round, and we'll go 2 hours for a couple of days, and then, you know, depending on weather and all that stuff, we'll slowly extend that time to be more and more. My seedlings are getting really big, and our last frost date is technically March 1st, which is in a week. But I usually wait at least a week after that, or 2 weeks. Basically, with a lot of your spring stuff, you want to wait until your nighttime temperatures are consistently over 50 degrees. And this is something else I wanted to kind of just mention in the seedling starting process. I know I'm one of the first zones to actually like start seeds and plant, so I'm hoping that if you watch this and you're in a different zone, you can kind of get ahead and kind of know this going in. Zones are a really good way to start to understand your climate. They're not the only way to understand your climate. So for example, my zone 8B might be the same as another part of the country, but my zone, I can probably plant earlier than other zones because of the temperatures. So really, like, you want to look at weather and when your temperature is going to be consistently over 50 degrees at night. That's when you want to plant your tomatoes. You can go by the last frost date, and that's totally fine, and you'll probably be fine doing that, but that's not really the end all be all. So do a little bit of additional research, kind of feel it out, and go that way. I am excited though to get some of these seedlings out of my house. My seed starting setup, I had to start in our bedroom because the garage was too cold to start seeds. But with how many seeds I'm starting these days, it's just like not that feasible. So we're gonna have to figure out a solution to be able to start all these seeds in the garage. But I also wanted to go through a couple more stressed seedling things to look out for and how to fix them. I probably don't seem like I'm that good at starting seeds because I keep doing these things about how to fix stressed seedlings, but it's fun. So all of these issues happen to be with my tomato seedlings. Whatever. I'm not too worried about them. Honestly, if you would have asked me when I started seeds if I was worried about these, I probably would have been freaking out, but not that worried. So here we have, it's not labeled, so that's great. This is probably either a cherry tomato or a Roma. So this seedling has this lovely yellow leaf. Couple of things. So we've talked about like nutrient deficiency and the purple under the leaves. That means you just need a little bit of liquid fertilizer. I use Fox Farm Grow Big liquid fertilizer. I don't think it's technically organic, but that's probably a whole separate conversation. Organic versus non-organic, that I'm not gonna have today. So notice that this yellow leaf is on the lower part of the plant, okay? So this leaf is much lower. I'm not gonna freak out about this seedling because it's still growing really well from the top, and these top leaves are very green. So the thing about tomatoes is if these lower leaves fall off and the plant decides to stop giving it nutrients, that's fine. And the reason that that's fine is because when I plant this thing in the ground, I'm going to plant it in the ground this far. Because all of these little hairs on the stem, I'm not sure if this camera's gonna be able to see it,
all of these hairs on the stem, those all turn into roots. And the better rooted your tomato is, the better it's going to fare in your garden. So yellow leaves that are towards the bottom of the plant, don't be too worried about them. You might just need to give your plant a little more water, or this might just be the life cycle of the plant and it's not that big of a deal. So very similar situation here. This is a Berries Crazy Cherry, which is interesting. I have Berries Crazy Cherry plants growing very differently in like different containers. It's very bizarre. But this plant, you'll notice, has a yellow leaf towards the bottom. Not a big deal. But this leaf, this middle leaf, is kind of facing outwards. I'm not immediately concerned about that, but it's something to watch, because typically you want your tomato leaves really being very parallel so they can soak up as much light as they can. This one might just be turned because of where it was on the seed starting rack. Who knows? Like I said, I'm not super alarmed at this point, but it's definitely something to watch out for. Similar situation here. This is a Roma tomato. This is just facing to the side. Very odd. Not sure why it's happening. So just to show you the difference, these are both Berries Crazy Cherry, sowed at the same time, same exact time, and look at how differently they are growing. This one is pretty like short and squatty with all the leaves very much, you know, facing parallel. This one is much taller, not as deeply green, and the leaves are turned. The only thing I can figure out between these two, because they were transplanted at the same time, like everything happened at the same time. This one was on a rack that had a light that was closer to it. This one had to stretch and reach for the light. But just to show you, same variety, pretty much all the same growing conditions. The only difference is where the light was. The only other thing to look out for at this stage of your seedlings, where you're getting really close to planting them out, the only other thing to look out for is if your roots are starting to creep out of the bottom, which I actually think I have an example of that too. I think you'll be able to see this one the best. I have to dry everything off because I watered everything this morning after I put it out, and I'll tell you something else that I did wrong that you can do right next time when you do it. So this one, this is a black crim. This is honestly one of my healthiest seedlings. It looks really good. The stem is nice and thick, but I'm not sure if you'll be able to see. So over here, you can kind of see a root poking out there. There's roots poking out here. So what that tells me is the roots have made it all the way to the bottom of this pot after being uppotted. I will be watching this one just to make sure that we don't end up in a situation where it's root bound, because if something is root bound, it's not a lost cause, but once you plant it in the ground, it might just have a harder time kind of getting started. So another thing, one thing I did do that was a mistake when I uppotted my seedlings, it's not like a detrimental mistake, but it was a mistake, is I used my excess seed starting mix to uppot these. Now, the reason that this can be a mistake is seed starting mix is meant to be really light, really airy. It's got a lot of peat, it's got a lot of perlite, which perlite is these like little white rocks that are in seed starting mix. That's what perlite is. So the reason it's so light and fluffy is so that the light can penetrate the soil and actually find the seed, and the seed can really easily grow roots without many obstructions. So I actually think I can grab a handful. So this is seed starting mix. It's really light, it's really airy, and it's got a ton of that perlite in it. So the problem is, if you continue to use a really light and airy seed starting mix, it does not hold water very well. So, and that's on purpose so you don't drown out your seedlings, but it not holding water very well is not the best situation for a seedling that's like this big and has bigger roots. That honestly could have been another difference between these two seedlings, was the mix that was used. That would make a lot more sense to me, especially because of the green, how green this is versus how lighter green this is. But that's a really important distinction. I used seed starting mix for some of my seedlings and then I ran out, so I had to go get an organic like soil mix, and I can tell a huge difference in the health of the seedlings that have the soil mix versus the seed starting mix. Let me see if I can find an example of the difference. Here's another Berry's Crazy Cherry. I think I'm literally figuring this out as I'm talking to you about it. So this is what the other potting mix looks like. It's much darker, it's much richer, it doesn't have as much perlite. So these are all Berry's Crazy Cherries. This one feels lighter, which tells me it's got a little bit more seed starting mix in it, but look at how much bigger and healthier and more green these are than this guy. So same plant, sowed at the same time, different potting mix. So this really shows you the ability of something to hold water and how that's going to affect the growth of the plant. So that was a really long explanation for me basically telling you, don't use seed starting mix when you up pot your tomatoes. Use a kind of soil that's going to hold moisture better, and actually feed your seedlings. So anyways, that is kind of what I've got today. Oh, I need to show you the nasturtiums now that they've been in the ground for like 12 hours and they haven't died. It's always good when you transplant something and it doesn't die. So here are the nasturtiums we planted yesterday. They are perking up very nicely, which is awesome. And they look great. I was a tiny bit worried. This leaf yesterday was pointed down like this, just from transplant shock, but it's perking back up towards the sun today, and they all look really good. I'm really, really happy about this. You just have some plants that just make you smile. It's pretty much all we've got going on today. And actually, what's today? Wednesday? This might be all that is going on for the rest of the week. I know hardening off seedlings is going to be really annoying, especially when you've got as many as like I've got. It's kind of annoying, but it's crucially important for your plants. So I will spend the next week hardening off these seedlings and kind of going about that process every day. And then once the nights consistently get in the 50s, which we're super close to that, these seedlings will actually just live outside until they get transplanted in the ground. So thanks so much for joining me this week. I really appreciate it, and thank you for all the well wishes that we got last week with the winter storm. I never really expected this community to be something that I really enjoyed, that was really supportive, but you guys are all really amazing, and I appreciate you coming back every week and following my gardening journey. Thanks so much, have a great week, and happy gardening.